Hey! Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Batman, Gotham Underground. Take a look at this comic cover right here. Very nice comic cover, might I add. Now, Gotham Underground is one of the one-year latest stories for Batman, and this story takes place in between Batman Death in the City and Batman and Sons. Now, the reason why I conclude to this is because, one, is that the Joker doesn't have a bullet mark on his head and is not in Arkham Asylum. After Batman and Son, Joker is shot in the head by one of the pretending Batman, and it stays in Arkham Asylum up until Batman R.I.P. The second reason why I conclude this is because the second ventriloquist is in this, and she shows up during Paul Dini's work on Detective and Death in the City. So with that said, Batman Gotham Underground is an attempt to tie up all the loose ends that were left over from the War Games, War Crimes series, the one-year latest stories, and everything in between. Now, you gotta understand that during Batman's War Games, up until War Crimes, Black Mask became the criminal underworld king, and eventually he was taken down by Batman, and eventually he's also killed by Catwoman. However, there's a vacancy in his position. See, the gangs and the crime syndicates of Gotham are not unified like they were during the War Games series and afterwards. However, in the one-year latest story, Face to Face, the Great White Shark takes up a position as the new crime warlord or crime lord of Gotham. However, this is very kind of cheap, and it feels like it's just kind of thrown in here. See, what you gotta understand about Batman Face to Face is it's a very nice story, probably one of the best of the one-year latest stories. However, it does the worst job tying together all the loose ends from the previous stories before the Infinite Crisis. However, Gotham Underground tries to tie all those loose ends together. Also, in addition to that, you get to see an all-star cast ranging from tons of Batman's allies, most of Batman's rogue galleries, and new characters, including also Gotham's crime world. With that said, let's get into the story itself. The basic idea between Gotham Underground is that everyone's going for control over Gotham's crime areas. The Penguin wants control over it. A new player called something Whale, I forget how to pronounce his first name, wants control over Gotham's crime. And at the same time, the Great White Shark wants to keep control of Gotham's crime. And they all have their own individual views towards this. Now, you can quickly forget about the Great White Shark because he really doesn't even play it as a major player in this. See, the Whale character that came in, he used to be part of the Metropolis Mafia. However, he's kind of been driven out and thrown into Gotham. And he believes that Gotham's crimes and his gangs should unite together like they were back in the 20s and so on and so forth. He believes that the masks such as Joker and Two-Face and Riddler and Penguin, all these super villains shouldn't be in control of Gotham's crime, because see, when the gangs were in control, there was balance, there was stability. The gangs had check and balances on each other. So he quickly wants to take out the people like Two-Face and Scarecrow and Joker and Poison Ivy so that the gangs, the real gangs of Gotham, can regain control. On the other hand, Penguin, who has become a legitimate businessman, although we all know he's not, wants to gain control of Gotham's crime, because, see, everyone treats him like a nobody now, well, with the exception of the Riddler. Joker, Two-Face, and all the others push Penguin around, because he's trying to be a legitimate business owner, or at least try to give off that kind of persona of a legitimate businessman, but at the same time, he still wants to be a major player in Gotham. He, on the other hand, from Whale, wants to have a team of supervillains to take out all the opposing competition that he has. In addition to this, he calls upon the assistance of the Secret Six, or the Sinister Six, to take out all of his competition, including Joker, Two-Face, Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, so on and so forth. However, he's butting heads with this new Whale character, and they're going at each other. At the same time, Batman is basically missing. Now, I don't want to reveal what happens to him, but under his other identity, Mantis Malone, he comes in with some kind of trouble, and he has to deal with getting out of his predicament, while at the same time trying to find a solution to the problem in Gotham. Nightwing takes control of the Batman family, and he's kind of trying to direct things and figure out what's happened to Bruce Wayne / Batman, but he's not having that much luck. A lot of other characters and players come into this, one of which being Vigilante. So it's really, this is the scenario. It's Gotham's gangs versus Gotham's villains versus Batman's family, and all the other miscellaneous players in there. Even Apocalypse gets, the planet Apocalypse was decided, and, Darkseid's minions get involved a little bit, but not really enough to point out. So, with that said, let's get into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Good thing is I really like that this was kind of a all-star cast story, and it's a 9-issue story, so you definitely get a lot into this. You get to see people ranging from Nightwing to Spoiler, from Two-Face to Riddler, and you get to see a lot of new characters too. In addition to that, although you don't get to see too much of Batman as Batman, you get to see him work Matches Malone a lot. And see, I like the Matches Malone character. I think it's a cool identity Batman cooked up to take down Gotham's underworld, or at least to infiltrate them. So you get to see him play off as Matches Malone, which is nice. In addition to this ties up a lot of the loose ends that were left over with the one-year later stories and everything before the Infinite Crisis. Because, like I said, Face to Face was a great book, but it really didn't solve too much trouble, and it felt like a quick fix on a few things. Face to Face really was more or less to bring Two-Face back and to set the tone for Batman and Robin. So it does try to fix up things there. Does it do it well? For the most part, I think it did good. But we'll get into that a bit more when I go into the bad. And on the whole, I feel as though the characters had a good feel to this. I really like how they focused on characters such as Penguin and the Whale character, along with Riddler. Actually, I think the best character in this was actually the Penguin, and Penguin actually stood up for his values in this. Now, this is a spoiler, so you might want to, I don't know, pause it or something, or put down the volume, because if you put down the volume, I'll go like this, and the spoiler will be over. But at one point, Penguin's being driven out of Gotham, and he has a choice: leave Gotham and live, or stay in Gotham and die. And Penguin decides, hey, I have dignity, I have respect. If I'm going to go out, I might as well go out in class. And he sends all of his people home, and he stays in his iceberg lounge waiting for the bitter end to take on all the bad guys or all of his enemies in combat. For me, that's actually a cool character trait. So with that said, that's the end of the spoiler for those people that put the volume down. But on the whole, I think the characters were portrayed very nicely. On to the bad. Well, one bad is, although it does tie up the loose ends that was left over with the previous Batman stories up until this point, I don't think it did it fantastically. I think it did a good job for what was given to it, but I felt as though they could have at least done maybe 3 more issues in this to really tie more together. But that's really kind of a minor complaint. They did the best they can with what they had. In addition to this, like I said, I like Matches Malone, but I would like to see more as Batman in this. But that's really the only 2 complaints I have. Oh, well, there's one more. The Apocalypse crew, like Darkseid and Facade, not so much Darkseid, but Facade kind of plays a role in this, and it's just really, this is about the crime and the underworld and the villains. I don't want to see anything about, Facade in there, so. Besides that, on the whole, whether or not you should get it. I recommend getting Gotham Underground. It is a bit pricey. It is a $19.99 price trade paperback, but you also are getting 9 issues worth of story in here. It does tie a lot of loose ends together, and I think it's necessary for a lot of the Batman, Robin, and Nightwing stories that take place after this. Because in this, Spoiler returns, so that ties in with Robin. This ties up with a lot of loose ends in Batman, and also it ties up with a few stuff with Nightwing. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it had some good action. One scene in particular was when Vigilante, the new Vigilante, went up against Batman, and I love the new Vigilante. I think it's cool, but Batman came up, and Vigilante didn't get one punch off Batman. Batman beat the living fuck out of him, and it was a great fight. There was no talking, nothing. Just, like, 5 pages worth of fighting, which was good. I thought the characters were portrayed nice, and on the whole, I think it's a good story. I recommend picking it up before you get heavy into the Grant Morrison stuff, because this is the last story before we get heavy into the Grant Morrison material. So, with that said, Gotham Underground, fun Batman story, definitely recommend picking it up. There's nothing more to say. With that said, this is Andrew saying, peace out for now.